Welcome to the channel, everybody. My name is G. We're going to talk a lot about the Wheel of Time. So this is G on Watt. Welcome to the green room. This is my little studio here. Got Emmons Field back here, nice oil painting. I do live in the Caribbean, so that is about all the snow I ever see, which is just lovely. So getting to the channel, guys. I've been a huge Wheel of Time fan for 30 years, 3 decades. I've been waiting to see this come to the screen. So I want to sort of take this channel and I want to discuss the show. And I would like to do episodes with just the show, but I would also like to bring other episodes in where we can discuss comparisons with the books, divergence from the storyline. But I'm very excited to see where this story goes. I've watched all the episodes numerous times so far, the first 3. I've watched them numerous times. I've kind of picked them apart and I kind of let my thoughts brew. And there's some really great reviews out there, guys. Daniel Green, phenomenal. He's like one of the premier experts on Wheel of Time. But guys, I want to give you my my sort of take on it. And I'm not a writer. I'm not a filmmaker or anything like that. I'm just a viewer, just like you. And but I also have the advantage of knowing where this journey is going to take us. But also, I so want to see the story that they're going to present us. Because, guys, this show, as wonderful as it's going to be through the whole thing, it's not going to be our books. It's going to have to be changed, and there's adaptation, and where you have to shorten and condense certain lines. And we're going to discuss changes that were come from the book and not give away any spoilers for the book, but I'd like to discuss why I think they were put in there into these characters, because some of our main characters have some severe changes right off the go, but and some people are a little taken aback by it, but I think it's going to come down to the overall arc of the show. I think this is going to be a way to really sort of use the inner monologue that we don't get, because we don't get, you can't have 4 pages of Perrin in his own head sitting there like this on screen. It doesn't work. So they need to create scenes and create situations for us to sort of tell those tales that are going on inside the head. Inner monologues on the screen do not work so well. It can, but it has to be done right. Without giving away spoilers, I'm interested to see how they're going to handle all these different inner monologues for all of the characters throughout the show. Now, as far as the book goes, I've heard different things about the pacing, and we're gonna cover just episode 1 right here, just episode 1, nothing more. I don't want to. I thought of doing one sort of deep dive into all 3, but I thought that was a little unfair, and I'd like to give each episode its own sort of thing. Now, sort of getting to the beginning of the episode, we get Moraine's sort of opening monologue, different from the books. We get Moraine's opening monologue, and it actually really tells us a lot in a very short period of time. And I'm looking at the not necessarily the reader, but the new viewer, somebody who's never even heard this. I hate using the comparison of Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings. This is sort of a mash, somewhere meet in the middle is the Wheel of Time. It's got a lot of really great fantasy elements to it and a magic system that is so well thought out, and a whole entire world that is so well thought out. I'm so curious to see where we're going to get to see this go on the adventure. Like I said, any of the readers of the books, we know where this is going. We know, but we don't know the story in the way that they're going to tell it to us. And throughout the books, there are these gentlemen called Gleeman, and we just met our first one in the first 3 episodes. And each one sort of tells their version of these stories throughout the land in their own way. So truly, when with this show, everybody's got their own expectations. Everybody has their own headcanon. Some people are going to like changes. Some people are not going to like changes. But the fact is there's nothing that's going to redo the book. And the books will always be there for you. If you want the books, please, and if you have not read the books, I highly suggest you go read the books, though it is a commitment. It's 14 books, these massive, sorry, I'm on massive tomes. Sorry, I have ink finger. Yep, you can see it right there. Sorry, that was from notes. There's 14 books, these massive tomes, so it's like the Encyclopedia Britannica, or like taking Wikipedia off the net and putting down on your desk and reading it over the course of a year. So it is a real commitment, but the journey is unparalleled. I've never experienced anything like it in literature, and the characters, without doubt, are some of my favorite characters ever put to page, ever, hands down, from movies, from books, anywhere. This journey that these characters are embarking on is so stellar, and I'm so excited to see it. So, guys, let's start right here with the beginning of episode 1. Now, we talked about it just briefly, but it starts with Maureen's opening monologue. And I like it because it is very informative. And then once it sort of breaks from that, we get the scene of the chase scene with the Reds. And I'm a little conflicted about this scene. And it's just as a reader point of view, and I can't get that out of my head. And when we watched this, we had people that were non-readers that sort of knew the loose generality of the story through us talking about it and this and that. But they don't know the details, and we weren't giving away spoilers of who's who and what's happens and where it goes. But this section with the Reds, and Moraine and Lan standing on top of that cliff, just watching everything. Like this is one of the changes that I'm not on board with. And it's not that it happened in a certain way or anything. I don't like the way it was executed. Because truly, the new viewer doesn't even know what the heck is going on. They just see a chase scene here real quick, and then they see a guy talking to somebody that's just not there, and then she says the madness is already taken, and then he screams. Like, I think it could have been portrayed in a little bit different way that might have taken an extra 30 seconds, 45 seconds to a minute to flesh that out just a hair more. It's not that I'm terribly disappointed with that scene. I don't want to make it out like that. I thoroughly enjoyed the show from start to finish, changes and all. I'm willing to accept whatever ride they're going to take us on because it is so difficult to adapt all this. So they need to tell us this in a cohesive way. And I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt here. Now, it was just the execution of that scene. However, Lilandrin, terrifying. Like, she's a scary lady. She is a scary lady. And that's one thing that they establish kind of quickly here, just through attitude on some of the characters, is, oh, I don't like them already. And that has been brilliant, because anybody that can make me hate you the second you come on screen and the second you open your mouth, I just dislike you. Kudos. Oh my God, I give it to you as an actor. And we're going to get more into that in a second, because that statement's going to carry on here. So that whole sequence, I thought it was good. It was one of those changes where maybe it could have been a just different transition in a spot coming up. I just don't know how I feel it going right into that out of Maureen's scene. I mean, maybe it's appropriate, maybe down the line it's going to pay off, but for me, that was just one of the things that I was like, and sort of the way it was executed. I think if they had made a couple changes and even through just a couple little actions, maybe that guy on the ground, because he's a male channeler, so he's very dangerous and he can touch the power. Maybe if it showed him even like attempting to channel, where he starts it and then the sequence, I think it would have made a little more sense. And then we get into the women's circle ceremony with Egwene and Nynaeve. And I did like that. And just that little bit, I know it got a little flack. It's a little weird. It's not in the books, but whatever. It's telling and progressing the story. And there's a lot of braid tugging throughout the books where they mention it. And I think in the books it's taken more of as an anger trait. And the speech that Nynaeve gives to Egwene when she's braiding her hair and she's talking about it, I think it's much more meaningful now that when because it's a Nynaeve character tick, and we get one big whip in one of the episodes, but it's a character tick, and it's gonna be a progressive thing, and now it gives more meaning to this, which I think is just great. I think it's just great. So then that whole sequence, I don't know about kicking somebody into some rapids for a test. Like, I mean, what if you're not a good swimmer? Like in the books, they talk about people that were pulled out of the wine spring, and yeah, I'm not quite sure about that, but I liked the struggle. And then when she surrendered to it, it took her right where she needed to be, and it brought her right back towards the shore. That I thought the imagery was good. I thought that the sort of foreshadowing of, if you've read the books, there's a lot of foreshadowing in these episodes. And I won't get into details, because if you get into the details of them, they're going to give away things that they're going about. So I won't mention who they are or what they are, but there's a lot of camera cuts when things are being said and things are being talked about. And these are not accidental. Like, these are like, kudos, Rafe. Like, I know this, there's a lot of flack, and this first episode is a pilot. So there's so much going on. But these little nods throughout the episode, and they're all over the place. If you have read the books, you will spot them. In heartbeats, you will spot them, and it's so lovely, because he's still telling the tale, and he's tipping the hat to all the readers, saying, I understand, and I haven't forgotten you, and here are your little things. We're telling your story, but just give us a minute. We can't tell you the whole story in a couple episodes. So as this episode progresses, I think it just keeps ramping up and up and up and up and up. And the pacing is a little weird. It is a little weird. It feels a little slow and drawn at some points, and then a little fast at others. But it's a pilot. It's difficult to get it down right. Like if you look at like Battlestar Galactica, they had a 4-hour pilot that was still a little janky, a little wonky, and then turned into this great sci-fi series. So guys, have a little faith. This was going on. While all this was going on, the pandemic hit, and it threw a lot of stuff off, and nobody could work in the same rooms as each other. So guys, have a little faith. Have a little faith. I'm a long-time reader, and I have faith that this show is going to be true to the characters, to the material, as much as it can, to progress us where it needs to go in the allotted amount of time that we have. Like, The Eye of the World is a slow book. It takes a minute to get rolling, because you're building this world. But guys, this whole thing, this little snowball that we have right here at the very beginning, this little thing, sort of this first episode, the way it's put together with its ups and downs and its holy cow moments, it is sort of foreshadowing a big arc of the show because of the way that it's paced. And for anybody that knows the story, anybody that's read it, we sort of know this journey. And there's going to be some spots later on in this story where we're going to be happy that things are condensed. Some of you will know, and it's not a turnoff. It's very detail-filled story writing, but it's referred to as a slog, though I've read the series so many times, and it's slower, and it's different, but I just look at it as these books are all, because most of them take time at the same parallel timeline, and all this stuff's going on at the same time. I think it was just not necessarily put together well, and I do suspect at the time Robert Jordan was sick, and he was putting it through, but that's a completely different topic. Anyway, getting back to the show. So we had the ceremony where the girls jump in the river, and then we get scene with Tam and Rand. And this is the other character that I wanna get at is Tam, Michael McElhatton. This man in Game of Thrones made me hate him, hate him in such a marvelous way. And I've seen him in other stuff, and he is such a phenomenal actor. And from the moment that I heard he was cast as Tam, I just threw my hands up. I said, wow, this is going to be so fantastic. He is such a brilliant actor. And we get little cuts of this, and I'll go into that later on. But as they're walking down the quarry road, as it was called in the books, I really was expecting this one thing that we never got, and I'm not going to go into it. I'm just going to sort of pass by it. But I was really kind of expecting like just something like even if it was so far back in the so that was another curveball that it threw me. I was very much expecting that just brief 2-second thing that led to many more things down the line in the books. In this talk with Tam and Rand is great, and I love how he says, "Well, so I used to be a sap at Rand, you're a sap, buddy. I love you, but you're a sap, and it's okay, man. It's okay." So and then they get to town, and I love the scenery, and this is one of the things in the show so far is I feel the scenery has been absolutely spectacular. The world, the mountains of mist behind them, the aged buildings and ruins from ages past, and the other turnings of the wheel. It's just these little nods that I just think are so phenomenal, and the landscapes are just incredible. Just incredible. The cinematography is great, and you can spend more time on that, man. If you want to go like the Akira Kurosawa, like 2-minute shots with no edits, going across the landscape with conversation going on, man, I'm all for that. The scenery here is absolutely stunning. I can't wait to see it all the different locations. Like I know towards the end of the season, it's already been shown, we get to see Fal Dara. We've already seen it. We get to see Fal Dara and Tarwin's Gap right there in the screenshot. So we know we're going. I can't wait to see it, man. It just, that's like one of those spots in this book where you're just like, whoa, yeah. So anyway, they get to the town. They get back to the town. And I'm sorry, I'm looking for a place to put my coffee down where I'm not gonna spill it on any valuable electronics. There we go. So we get to the town, and the town scene I really enjoyed. I thought the costumes were great, though my only criticism on the costumes, and I know it was the first episode, and I know it's Beltane, and so it's a holiday, so maybe that's why they were that way. The costumes felt a little more costumey and not so lived-in-y for some of the characters, and maybe that's because it's Beltane. It's their spring holiday, and maybe that's what this was about, and maybe I read into it wrong, because Matt, obviously he's worn down and tattered, and we're going to get into Matt here in just a second. So we come in, and it sort of gives that overview, and they walk in, and Tam and Ram bring the brandy into the inn, and it's just this great little sequence, and seeing Daisy Conger sitting there at the table and hearing them talking about the Coplans and the Congers and all these people that you know, and looking for them in the background, like, oh, who's who, yeah, okay, oh, I heard you talk, but who are you? And it's just this great little scene, and when Tam and Bran are talking, that brief little thing they have where they talk about, oh, they're not going to remember it, huh? I just thought this was this great moment. And then we get into the table with the three boys. We got Matt, Rand, and Perrin, and the very first thing we see out of Matt is Matt with a dice cup. And I just died as soon as I saw that. I was like, wow, they're going for it. Okay, here we go already. And they're all sitting there, and I want to give it to all the actors. I think the acting in this show so far has been superb. I think they've embodied the characters. Each one of these guys makes me feel like they are the characters from the book. Whether they're being portrayed on the screen in the way that they were portrayed in the books is different. However, the essence of these characters is there. It's there. It's on the screen, and I love it. And I cannot wait to see these huge character arcs that these guys are going to go on. And we see a little bit of it in coming episodes where they get split up, but we'll go into that. I don't want to give away any spoilers coming in. We're going to talk about episode 1. But at this point, I think who's going to watch them has watched all 3 episodes, which is also why I wanted to wait, because my brain just goes ahead and I sometimes can't stop. So I don't want to give any away spoilers, anything like that as far as future episodes. But the acting involved here, these guys really truly make me feel that they're the boys. They're our boys from Emmons Field. Nynaeve as, oh my Lord, she's one of my favorites from the book, and she's totally the Karen of the group and the show for a bit. Like, these characters that we're seeing, guys, they go through, almost every one of these characters goes through massive growth. For good, for bad, for both, whatever. I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but all these kids, this is 14 books long. We're in book 1. There's going to be so much growth in these characters. And Nynaeve, I love her. I love her. But she's kind of Karen right now. And but the show so far has really portrayed her well. And I like that. You just see her briefly with Egwene at the ceremony, but her speech is so great. And I think Zoe's going to do a great job as Nynaeve. I feel it already. And we're going to get more into her in the future episodes because we'll talk about those. I don't want to get too much into her character growth. However, one of my favorite scenes from her is in the first episode. It's one of my favorite scenes from the show so far. So getting back to the boys and the table, I really like how this sets everybody up. And Matt in the books doesn't get a lot of development right away. And Matt is portrayed here as a little bit downtrodden. Like, he's the sort of Han Solo type, he's the scoundrel. He's a good guy. He's very lovable. He's a good guy, but, he's a scoundrel. He's a gambler, all that. And he doesn't get a lot of, like, growth of any kind, or, most of the boys back home, I like how they sort of differentiated everybody. Because without spoiling too much, it's like, oh, hey, here's a hometown kid and he comes from a good home. Here's a hometown kid and he comes from a good home. Here's a hometown kid and he comes from a good home. There's not much character separation early on. And I think the way that they introduce the 3 boys, because obviously it shows Tam as a very loving father. It says Perrin is married, which is different from the books, but cool. So obviously he's not, like, his father figure thing isn't an issue there. He's married, so it's him and his wife. And then Matt, we see, has quite a different story from the books. His dad was I won't get into it. I'll get into it in the later episode where it's brought out. It's like the nod back to the books. But we see Matt with a very sort of bad home life. His mom is out there, she looks like she's hammered out of her gourd, looking at her dad who's flirting with some young girl over there, helps mom in, and she calls him you're going to be just like your father. Like, this is heavy. Like, Matt he's like a carefree guy. And, like, when you see him at the table, all aloof, that's Matt. Like, and this gives such weight to his character. And oh my Lord, thank you. I think this is one of the best things that came out of all the weird changes. This, to me, for Matt, getting this kind, like, now, like, things will make sense of who he is and where he goes and why he does what he does. And there's in this first episode, there's very little exposition. Like, they don't talk about, and they don't fill us in on background, but they really are, in a way that it's just not just being thrown at you. There's things that really are going to make you think in this show. At further on in the show, you're going to come back and you're going to watch these episodes and be like, I completely missed this and this and this and this and this. And you're going to say, now I understand. Now I understand. Like, this makes so much more sense. And it's so cool, these little shots, and none of it is just force fed to you. There are some things that are given to you and they're right in our face. But I really truly believe that the guys, Rafe and Harriet and all the people that worked on this, like, these people don't want this to be horrible. Okay, but there's so many inner monologues and so much discussion that goes on inside the head that we cannot get explanations for all of it and especially in a meaningful and legitimate time frame. And anybody that thinks that they could adapt any of these books to exactly the way they are, you're out of your minds. It's never going to happen, because it would take far too long. Our kids would look like Gandalf by the time the series finished, because we couldn't do that. I mean, you would never stop filming. It would be an every day, all day, everything, every day. As soon as you finish one episode, you're on to the next episode. No breaks ever. And it would take forever to do this. So they have to tell us this story in a bridge manner. And thank you guys for giving Matt this little spot, because there's a lot of trauma throughout the Wheel of Time, and redemption and arcs throughout the entire series. So I'm interested to see how these changes are going to be presented in that big overall picture in the end. So I'm kudos. That was one of my favorite parts to that. And then we kind of get into sort of the feast of Rand and Egwene. And I like this little moment. And the kids are a little more grown up in the books, and it's a little more adult. And I think that, like I said, all these little changes, I think they're going to be much, much, much more meaningful than any of, like, the straight book purists with their own headcanon are giving credit right now. I think these little moments, I think they're going to be much, much, much more meaningful in future episodes, because they did these little things, and because the beginning is a little different. Okay, now the pacing really starts to kick up and really starts to go. And really starts to move along. And I like that they're taking these little moments, these little pauses in Emond's Field, because Emond's Field in the books takes several chapters, and it would be an episode to 2 episodes on its own. And you can't just do that. I mean, you wouldn't sell anybody. You need to grab the audience. This show is not just for the book fans. They want to bring in fans that have never heard of the Wheel of Time. They want to bring these fans in, and they want to hook them. So I think they're doing a great job of that. Like, and they are expediting the story quite a bit, getting us on the road. So I want to address the giant elephant in the room of Lan and Moraine hot tub scene. Everybody was like, whoa, 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 because this is a strictly platonic relationship, but they have such a tight bond through the Warder Aes Sedai bond, which you see in the fight scene later on in the episode for Winter's Night. You see it, and it's choreographed so well, so it's just another nod. I know all the ladies were loving the Lan ass, so there you go. You got the first shot of Lan ass right off the bat. So all you landladies out there, there you go. That was your nod. And I loved the little dialogue between them where Lan says, could be warmer. She says, I can't believe they have it at all. And says, it could be warmer. and then just leans back and goes, I just loved that little moment. I just thought it was so great because these two people they're the best of friends, traveling companions, and we're going to see their arc already. But you already see it just in the way that they interact with each other. You already just feel that you know that these people have known each other for years and years and years and years, intimately, but not in a sexual way. It is a very platonic thing, the Ward or Aes Sedai, bond. So I just really love that moment. So fast forwarding, we're gonna get up. We get the Rand Egwene argument, which I think is just setting up stuff for future events, and it's just going to give more meaning to things when they happen. And throughout the show, there's all these great little nods, and I think they're just going to give much more meaning to things. So then we have Winter Night. Now, Winter Night is just off the chain, and I'm so glad I got to see this because we get the cabin scene in the books with Rand and Tam. We get the cabin scene, and it's a little different, but we get the cabin scene. And then when we get back to Emmons Field, it's Tam riding on the horse like he was. So I want to go into the whole Winter Night scene. It's all this joyous, okay, let's the carnage begin. And holy cow, does it go off the rails fast. And it's just wild, like what starts going on. And so, and I totally forgot to address Padan Fain. Kudos, sir. Your acting is brilliant, and I love it. And what reminded me of that was his little, time to put the drink down, and I'm out of here. And just turns around. When all this stuff happens, he just sets his drink down, looks around, and whoop, pieces on out. I just thought it was just such a brilliant nod to his character. And I was just, oh my God, I'm so looking forward to your performance, sir. I am so looking forward to your performance. It's brilliant already. Every moment you've been on screen, I love it. I love it. It's just fantastic. That's the thing, is that with all the actors in this so far who are portraying our characters they're just knocking it out of the park. I'm so blown away. And so Padan Fain skips out, and it cuts, and you're seeing Moiraine and Lan dance in that. And if it does these great side shots and all these wonderful camera effects, so you can show the ballet of her channeling and him using sword forms, just dicing through. And I forget the sword form's name, but they describe it in the book, where he goes down to his knees and does this big, wide, sweeping arc, and you see him come back through it right there and takes 3 Trollocs down in this one little bit. And it's straight from the book. He's not like cat crosses the courtyard. He's not calling out these things, but they're there. They're there, and that's just such brilliant attention to detail. And then you really start to see all these different Trollocs, and you realize they're all different. They're all different because Trollocs are just beasts made up of men and beasts, bulls and boar and deer and wolves and eagles and beaks and they're just all this mishmash of parts and stuff and fur and feathers. And oh my God, I just love it. Because if you stop and freeze frame those frames and you take a look at them, they're all different. Like, that is massive attention to detail. Some of them have regular human feet. Some of them have hooves. Like, some of them have horns. Some of them don't. Like, oh my Lord, this is just fantastic. And the Myrddraal, the Fade, the Eyeless. Kudos. I love it. Because when you see him walk in and the wind is billowing around and the rain's coming down, the only thing that's moving his cloak is the horse. There's no wind pushing his cloak. So again, nod to the books. Thank you. We'll cheers to the Millennium Falcon with some coffee. So guys, this battle's raging in the town, and they are not skimping on horror or gore, which I love because there's so many different type, like you have regular fantasy and magic sections and horror sections. I mean, straight up like Stephen King horror sections that are terrifying. And I really hope that it doesn't seem like they're skimping on that, which is just glorious. So, it's so fantastic to see that they're really taking attention to detail and giving us these little nods and these little things, even though they're having to spin the story out in a slightly different way. And I'm okay with that. I accept that these are not the books, nor they will ever be the books, nor is anything ever going to match my headcanon, because Tom will only ever in my brain when I read those books be Sam Elliott forever. I don't know why, but he is Tom Maryland. Though we'll go into Alexander Wilhelm's performance as him later on when we get into that episode. But again, I think stellar casting. None of this stuff would have been necessarily my choice. But I think who made these choices and put these people together was brilliant. And I'm so floored by more the interactions between these characters. I don't care if a little CGI is wonky or something in an episode, because that stuff can be fixed. You cannot fix chemistry between people. You either have it or you don't. And all these characters, they make me feel that they are these characters, which is leading me to the cabin scene. So everything's going crazy. Moraine's channeling, Land's going crazy. Boom. We cut to the cabin scene, which is what we get in the books. This is our winter night crap. So I want to go into the cabin scene, and I want to cut from the combat, and I want to go back into this whole sequence of events was just so brilliant, and I thought it was so well done. Tam and Rand, when they're sitting when they're up top and they're lighting the candle for bell time, Tam's speech to Rand right there about the spinning of the wheel of time, it is so filled with wonderful foreshadowing for all these different characters, and the way he says it and the way it's pronounced is just so spectacularly done. So Michael McKellen, sorry if I butcher your name, sorry. I love your performance. Oh my God, sir, you are going to knock this role out of the park, and I'm so happy they picked you. That whole sequence where he's explaining the spinning of the wheel of time for non-readers, that moment it gives you so much in backstory and exposition in such a brilliant way with that gorgeous view. And I love the Japanese style. I love that Japanese style bell that they had out there with the crossbeam that they hung the lantern on. Just beautiful, just beautiful. And that view is just stellar. And then the whole sequence inside the cabin when winter night's going on, when you hear Bella outside is all going crazy. Oh yeah, Bella, love her. We had our first name mentioned from Egwene in episode 2, but we'll get into that. So Bella's kind of freaking out outside. They don't know what's going on, but they both know something's up. And then all of a sudden the door explodes. And this fight sequence in that cabin was so brilliant, because a cabin is a very tight space to have a sword fight or a hand-to-hand combat fight like that with weapons. It's very unwieldy, and I thought it was brilliantly done. And so I love when Tam rips out the heron mark blade and puts it in his hand, and Rand's on the floor looking at him like, what the? Dad? And Tam goes ham on the Trolloc. And Narg, which we won't really get into Narg. We know it's Narg, but anyway, Narg's smart, right? So anyway, Tam starts going ham on this guy. And I mean, he's just ripping through forms. But what I love is there's a muscle memory to any kind of sword fighting, any kind of weapon fighting at all. And it happens. But when you don't practice for a while, you're rusty. And Tam truly played it as somebody that he knows his shit, but man, he ain't done it in a while. And he does Danny Glover, I'm too old for this shit. But, starts going. And you can tell his forms are not as fluid as they could be. Like when you watch Lan in those combat sequences, everything is fluid movement. It's brilliant. Tam was a little bit more clunky, even though he was still on point. And I thought that was just so fantastic. And Rand's face, Yosha, you're killing it as Rand. Like, I love it. Your face, when you look over and you see Tam with that sword, it just so brilliant. I love it. And Tam says, oh, you got to leave. It's Trolloc. You got to run. Interesting that Tam knows what a Trolloc is. Interesting. And then we cut back to Winter Night with Nynaeve and Egwene. And this is one of my favorite things that I've seen yet in the entire show. They drag that Nynaeve, and it really shows Nynaeve's character here. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning, taking just a few seconds, like what they could have done with that beginning sequence, just taking a few seconds, just a few, to establish these characters just a little more. And that's what I kind of didn't like about that introduction with the Reds at the beginning, because they didn't take that extra 35, 40 seconds to establish this. And when Nynaeve and Egwene pull that old man out of the street with that massive gaping leg wound that he's got, and she ties it off, and she looks at him, and she knows he's gone, and she tells him, don't worry, it's stopped. It's okay. And she is holding his head. She's holding his head at that moment and totally focused on this man like she had, and it just defines her in these razor blade moments that we get. And as the story progresses, you get to see who Nynaeve is, and it's spectacular. And then all of a sudden they get in the alley, and that crazy boar-like Trolloc comes ripping down, and Nynaeve rips out her blade, and she's standing there with this little tiny blade standing there, and the Trolloc rips out his sword and roars at her, and she screams at it. She was not screaming in fear. She roared at it. And then they ducked its attack, and then they show Two Rivers in its true fashion. These ladies start going to town on this Trolloc. Egwene bashes it in the head. Nynaeve prison shanks this thing a couple times in the frickin' ribs. And then as they fall back, it gets ripped in half by Moiraine right there by the power. This whole sequence is just so brilliant. I had to go back and rewind it and watch it again, and then rewind it and watch it again. Oh my Lord, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And when she roars back at him and then ducks his shot and prison shanks him, oh my God, I lost it. I lost it. So yeah, Nynaeve, I love you. And Egwene, Madison, whatever, you're killing it. as Egwene. You are absolutely killing it. Again, all these characters really truly make me feel like they're these characters, and they make me feel like they've known each other forever. Like Nynaeve and Egwene make me feel like they've known each other since they were young, and same with the boys. They, yeah, I think they're just doing such a beautiful job of this in the time that they've got. And so I'm not happy with everything that happened in this episode. There's things that I didn't like, but they're minor in comparison. Now we're going to get to the spot. This is the controversial spot right here. We're going to get to Perrin, and we hadn't really seen much of his wife. She seems very cold towards him. Like, I don't know if this is just the actors didn't have time to, I don't know. But like when he first comes in, I'm flashing back in the episode a little bit, but I want to go over this. I wanted to wait until this point to go over his character because it all ties together. And I know I've jumped around in the episode a little bit, but going back to it, these sort of steps pull together. Now, Nynaeve, when they're in the Wine Spring Inn, she says to Perrin, "The forge is hard to work alone. Iron's hard to work alone." And he takes off. Now, when he goes back and he says, "What are you doing here? Everybody's celebrating," and puts his arms around her, she is very frigid at him. And he puts his hands right on her lower stomach, like her womb area, like. So I think that implies that they're trying to be pregnant or that she is pregnant. I'm not, it's not 100% certain, but it's sort of, I'm going to take it as it is implied. So we'll leave it at that. Because Perrin doesn't have a wife in the books. So all this is new. All this is new to all the viewers. So I like this. I like seeing how they're going to portray this. Now, I did not like sort of how everything goes down later. But like, it really seems they're pretty frigid. Like, he puts his arms around her and he tells her he loves her. And she just has that, like, she's not there look. Like, she's just, I know. And then leans their head against her like, "I'm trying." Like, I don't know. And we're not really given enough to be able to build that. I mean, I'm sure it will come within flashbacks. Like, I don't doubt there's going to be flashbacks that are going to explain things for these characters, because it's going to have to be how they're going to explain the inner monologue. So I think they're going to be done through different characters, through flashbacks, is what I think that they're setting all this up in. So I think all the people that are disappointed that there was no explanation and horrified or all these different things, all these different emotions, I think it's just, we just haven't gotten it explained yet. Like, the best shows don't give you everything at once. Like, look at Lost. I mean, oh my God, you never knew what was going on, but people were there every week because they were just glued, because they loved these characters and they were invested in them. Well, I am the same way, and I can't wait to see the direction that they're going to take with this, because as of right now, they performed a big time trope. We don't have to get into it. Everybody's gotten into it. But yeah, so in the fight, they're very frigid. And even when they're in bed, it seems very frigid. When Perrin's asleep and she's looking at him, I don't know. Like, I don't feel that she's looking at him in a loving nature. Like, maybe like, I'm really freaking trying. Sort of like Matt's parents, maybe. I don't know. We just haven't gotten it. But she does grab his little finger and just hold on to it. And that was about the most emotion that I really got from her up until we get into Winter Night, when they run to the forge. So we get to the forge, and you see them bringing in other villagers, getting them in there and locking them in to try to keep them away from the Trollocs running around. And then all of a sudden, craziness ensues, and Trollocs get inside, and they tell the other people to get out and run. And so the fight breaks out, and I think this is such the a lot of people really hated this scene, and I think it could have gone down differently. Brandon Sanderson said this could have easily have been Master Luhan. For non-book readers, you don't know who Master Luhan is. Master Luhan is Perrin is a blacksmith. It's his master. He is the apprentice. He's the master craftsman that he's learning from. He said just could have easily been him. However, I agree. But I do think that this, once we find the rest of that story arc out, I think that the way it was done here is going to explain things better down the road in a more logical way. And another brilliant, awesome little detail was Perrin picks up the axe to fight the Trollocs. And Layla, after she gets pinned to the wall and like stabs it with whatever smithing tool she yanked off the wall with. I'm not exactly sure what it was. It looked like a big pair of scissors or something. But it was like a foot and a half long blade. And she just freaking jabs this thing right in the freaking throat and up in its upper back. It drops her and she grabs the hammer. So now Layla's got the hammer and Perrin's got the axe. And they are just going to town on these two. And Layla just smites this Trolloc, just hits it in the leg, breaks its leg, crushes its skull. And then it cuts to Perrin fighting, and you see Perrin go into full-on Perrin beast mode. He just goes crazy on this thing in sort of like a berserker blood rage. And then, yep, the other white elephant, the giant shanking with the full half-moon blade right into his wife's gut. Now, there's a theory, because if you pause it and you look at this photo, and I'm sure a lot of you that are into this show already have looked at this photo. Now, her hands are raised behind her head like this. Now, everybody says the Trollocs were down. She was going for Perrin. And maybe this is the case. Maybe she's the dark friend. Maybe she's a dark friend. But if you look at the scene right before it happens and right after it happens when she falls, you'll see the Trolloc that Perrin is fighting is on the ground where Perrin was, and the Trolloc she was fighting is on the ground in between her and Perrin, on the ground. So this screenshot that says it's coming down on Perrin could very well have been her coming down on the Trolloc in between them. So I like that it's gonna start the controversy of debate of, was she a dark friend? Do we find out? Oh my God, did Perrin kill his wife? How's this gonna? Oh my God, what, the freak out that's happening right now through all the fan base. I love this. And one of the things with non-viewers is they were horrified when this happened. I was horrified. Like, I sat right up. I was figuring that the Trolloc would kill her in some weird like death throw, like they think it's done. She looks over and blah, and she gets stabbed, and then Perrin finishes. That's what I was expecting. I didn't expect her to make it. I know that she was written in, and all these characters have to be vested into the go to the hero's journey. They have to be. Like, you need that. Like, you need the reasoning behind it. So I think this was Perrin's, where they got him into that situation and said, okay, here's your reason. Here's your reason. Now, did they throw that in there just to mess with us? With that hands above the head? Is she a dark friend? Is she not? I don't know, but I love it. And yeah, so that was horrific, and I'm sorry, Perrin. And that's like soul crushing weight right there that you're gonna have to deal with. But again, like I said, the Wheel of Time has a lot of trauma in it, but it has a lot of good things, a lot of great things in it. But In a lot of things, trauma causes growth. So we'll see where this goes. Perrin, I'm very interested how your character arc is affected by this and where it's going to go. Now, again, I'm going to state that I think these little changes that we've seen are playing out much more for the big picture story arc than just for the short moment. I don't think we're getting the quick payoff, guys. We're not getting that. They want there to be mystery. They want there to be intrigue. They don't want you to know who's who. They don't want you to know who's good, who's bad, who you like right now. Because by the end, there's people that when you meet them, and I'm going to state this for the entire series. This is not on any specific character. There are characters that you will love when you meet them, and you will despise them by the end of the book. There are characters that you will be on the fence about and not know how you feel about them until one certain moment. And then that will decide whether you love them or hate them. And there's so many characters through these books that go on such huge arcs, that these little changes made to different characters from the books, I think they're just going to compound this in the long run, because they're going to have to combine characters. They're going to have to combine character story arcs. And I hate comparing to Game of Thrones, because this is not Game of Thrones by far. It has elements of Game of Thrones in it, but I hate. So I'm just not. Character arcs. In Game of Thrones, there were characters that you loved at the beginning and hated by the end, and vice versa. So, and they throw curveballs at you in this. Robert Jordan throws many curveballs throughout this series. And I can't wait to see these moments brought to screen. I really can't. I'm very excited about where this is going. So in all, I'm gonna kind of close it there. We have sort of a very brief leaving of Emmons Field when the Trollocs are pouring down out of the mountains of mist. They're just pouring down the mountain, coming straight to the two rivers. And now, again, we feel like we get a little bit rushed out of the two rivers, but we can't spend multiple episodes in there. I think what they're going to do is they're going to flash back to the two rivers more often to give us a little bit more explanation of the things that we didn't quite get from the book to the show. Now, I think the show is kind of leading off in a good way. This first episode is a little bit jumbled. It's a little bit, I don't want to say jumbled. The pacing's just a little weird. It's fast and slow and slow and fast and fast, slow and slow and fast, but it really has some brilliant moments in it. I don't want to focus too much on the negative. There's a little bit of it that I didn't like. And like I said, I don't know how I feel about his wife being that way. But whatever, regardless of whether we like or we dislike the changes that have come into it, I think that where they're going to pay off is the long run. And then, so in the ending of the show, we've got the boys and the girls heading out of Two Rivers. Oh, and I totally forget to mention Nynaeve getting dragged off in the middle of the night. I thought that was horrific. So we have Egwene, Rand, Matt, Perrin, and Moiraine and Lan all heading out. And I think, again, a couple more seconds here would have made all the difference. Like, all we really get is Tam, when Rand looks at him, gives him the nod, like, you're doing the right thing. Go. It's okay. And that's all we get. We don't get it from anybody else's perspective. Like, obviously, Perrin can't. And I love that moment between when Perrin's carrying his lady out in the morning, and Matt starts screaming, Perrin, and he goes, and he truly, like, yeah, Matt really, his character really shines, because Matt is that guy. He's that guy. He's always there for his friends, and I love it. And it really shows. And he has Barney Harris, you are knocking it out of the park as Matt. And you have these brilliant little nuances and these little subtleties that come through in your acting. And I am going to be sad to see you go. You've really, all these characters have really sold me on who they are. And with that, they say, Rafe Judkins says that change is going to be seamless. And I do suspect I know where it's going to happen from the books, but I'm just going to ride it out and see what happens. But I do suspect that I know sort of where it's going to occur or how it's going to occur, or sort of the details relating to how they're going to justify that little weird shift. But whatever. That's not here nor there. We'll see how that's going to play out. But Barney Harris, you have sold me as Matt, and I love that moment with you. And I love your little side stabs that you make. You are totally killing that dry humor, and I absolutely love it. And you've got some great moments in there, and they're brilliant acting, and I love that moment. And I would have liked to have seen, because we get such a great buildup of Matt in that episode. We don't really get to see him, like, he's doing this for his sisters. He's leaving to keep his sisters safe. And we don't get that 10 seconds of shot to show that. And I felt that after so much buildup of how much he cares for his sisters, I thought that was a little bit of a letdown. Like, Perrin has nobody to leave behind right now. So his leaving is going to be, very somber. We get a Gwen interaction with her dad and her mom, and it's very like snap of the finger, you get the hug, and they're gone. Now, I did not like who they cast as Bran Alvir as her father. I thought there was no chemistry. I didn't like it. I thought he was very clunky. Now, I don't know. I just didn't feel that they had it. He did not sell me as Bran Alvir. That was one of my big gripes of the entire show and of any of the casting that I've seen throughout the series so far was Bran Alvir. I just didn't buy it. I'm sorry. I don't know what it is. When his interactions with Egwene, I didn't buy it. I buy her mother. I like Mistress Alvir. I buy her. But I didn't like Bran. Maybe it was just he didn't have enough screen time or what it was, but I just felt they didn't have any chemistry. Like, it was something in the eyes, like when they looked at each other, whatever, how they were interacting. I just did not buy it. And maybe it'll be different later on. Maybe it'll I don't know. But that was my one really big disappointment in the episode as far as casting was Bran Alvir. I just didn't buy it. And so if I'm sorry, that was my big gripe. So they leave, they head on out. Matt gets no closure with his sisters. Like, I was hoping that, he was going to be hugging them and, giving them some kind of weird Matt sagely advice like he does, like when he went over to Perrin, and even if it's just putting his hand on him, it just shows that Matt's always there for his people. He's there. If you're one of his people, he's your ride or die. He's got your back. I love it. And, we get more moments of that in these episodes coming up as well, in episode 2 and 3. But I would have liked a 10-second, 15-second shot of Matt with his sisters leaving town, before they leave town. And then they leave town, and I thought that was the end with Moraine giving the sentence. It's the phrase that's in every book. It's always there. And the wheel lives as the wheel wills. It's no beginnings nor endings, but it was a beginning. And I loved it. And I thought it really was a brilliant way to end the first episode, the pilot episode. I loved that right there. I thought it was so unbelievably brilliant that they put that in there. Because we didn't get it like an opening title sequence. Like, there was no what we're watching. It was just, we were just into it, And then episode 2, we get the opening sequence. But there was not. a sequence for the pilot episode. It just starts with Maureen, just like the prologue starts in the books. It just starts. There's no like, yo, hey, this is what it is, And so I thought that was very cool that they put that at the very end of the first episode to sort of say, welcome to the Wheel of Time. And from there, I think the episodes only get better and better and better. I really do. So with that, guys, I want to say stay tuned. Thank you all for hanging out. Please like and subscribe to the channel, all that. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to try to do one of these for each of the episodes that come out, maybe in the off season between seasons for the show. We can sit down and we can do huge discussions on, I will, if people are into it, I'll do discussions on future stuff in the books, future books, but I would kind of like to keep the discussion to stuff limited within the scope of the series. Now, the series is going to encompass sometimes multiple books at the same time. So I would like to discuss only things that are within the scope of that series, within the series discussion. Now, we can talk about the book stuff, and I'll throw little small things like Perrin did not have a wife. It's not a huge thing. It gives away nothing. Gives away nothing from the books. I won't give any spoilers. And if I am going to give spoilers in any one of the upcoming videos, guys, there will be a huge spoiler warning right there in the title. It'll say spoilers ahead, kick back, relax, enjoy the show. If you don't want spoilers, don't watch. But guys, thank you for coming in, man. My name is G. This is G on Wa, and we'll see you next time.